Imagine inheriting a massive, unimaginable fortune, only to discover that instead of setting you free, it completely destroys your moral compass.
Oh, absolutely. It's that classic trap.
Right. And now, consider pursuing the illusion of love with such blind entitlement that you can't even see the hypocrisy staring back at you in the mirror.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today.
We really are.
Yeah.
We're talking about the dark side of unearned wealth, the delusion of transactional affection, and just the sheer human capacity for breathtaking hypocrisy.
It's a heavy topic, but a necessary one.
Definitely. So welcome to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. We are incredibly glad you're choosing to spend your time with us today.
We really are.
And before we get into the core of today's deep dive, I just want to humbly ask you to please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share your valuable thoughts in the comments down below.
Your support is honestly what allows us to keep analyzing these incredible stories for you.
Exactly. And the material we're unpacking today is going to give you a lot to analyze and debate in those comments.
Oh, without a doubt. The themes here are timeless and frankly quite challenging.
Welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We are exploring a truly brilliant, classic piece of literature. The source material for today is a short story titled Vaishya.
Which roughly translates to the courtesan or the prostitute.
Yes, exactly. It was written by the legendary Indian author Munshi Premchand, and we are pulling this directly from his celebrated collection, Mansarovar Part 2.
You know, Premchand is widely regarded as a master of social commentary. He rarely just tells a surface-level story.
Right, he always has a deeper motive.
He really does. He prefers to hold a mirror up to society. And often the reflection he forces his readers to look at is deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, he was writing in the early 20th century, but his insights into human psychology feel remarkably modern.
They could have been written yesterday.
So, our mission for this deep dive is to extract a full, highly detailed summary of this specific story for you. But we aren't just going to recount the plot points.
No, that wouldn't do it justice.
We want to explore Premchand's brilliant psychological contrast between two very different men who are pursuing the exact same woman.
And we'll also dissect that razor-sharp social commentary on wealth, gender dynamics, and power that Premchand weaves throughout the whole narrative.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting right at the beginning with a scenario that kind of subverts all normal expectations.
The opening sequence really establishes the thematic baseline for everything that follows.
It really does. So we're introduced to our two main ill characters right away. Daya Krishna goes to visit his close friend, Singar Singh.
And the context here is crucial.
Very crucial. Singar's incredibly wealthy father has just passed away. So Daya Krishna is going to the house to pay his respects, offer condolences to a grieving son.
Which is what any good friend would do.
Exactly. He walks in, naturally expecting a house of mourning, a somber atmosphere, maybe people speaking in hushed tones. But what he finds is entirely jarring.
It is the stark opposite of a traditional mourning period.
Right. Instead of a son sitting in quiet reflection, Singar Singh is dressed in lavish clothing. He's wearing a fine silk shirt, luxurious velvet shoes, and his hair is perfectly curled and styled.
He looks like he's preparing to host a high society gala.
He really does. And Daya Krishna is just standing there, trying to process this visual disconnect. He notes internally that offering condolences in that specific moment felt utterly foolish.
Because offering congratulations seemed much more aligned with how Singar was actually behaving.
Yes. I mean, how does someone even process that level of disconnect from their own friend?
What's fascinating here is how quickly Premchand demonstrates that sudden, immense wealth can short-circuit basic human empathy and tradition.
It just overwrites it completely.
Completely, because in the cultural context of the time, mourning a patriarch was a deeply respected, extended ritual.
Right.
Singar's blatant disregard for this isn't just a fashion choice. It's a declaration of his new reality. He isn't mourning a father. He's celebrating his financial liberation.
Wow. Yeah. The sheer volume of the inheritance has completely eclipsed the human loss.
He's insulated by money from the normal human experience of grief.
Which leads Daya Krishna to seek out someone who might explain this bizarre behavior. So, still reeling from Singar's party-ready appearance, he ends up speaking privately with Singar's wife, Leela.
And Leela's the one who provides the critical context for this whole situation.
She serves as the moral anchor of the story's opening, doesn't she?
She really does. She's incredibly perceptive, and she shares a powerful, somewhat tragic insight with Daya Krishna. She tells him directly that she views these inherited millions not as a blessing, but as an absolute poison.
Calling inherited wealth a poison is a striking perspective, especially considering most people spend their entire lives working to accumulate just a fraction of that kind of financial security.
But she explains her reasoning quite logically.
She does.
She believes that if her husband hadn't inherited this immense wealth, he would have been forced to participate in reality.
Right, he would have had to work, take on real responsibilities.
Exactly. Face the daily struggles that build character, stay on a grounded path. The sudden influx of unearned wealth removed all consequences from his life.
It effectively infantilized him while simultaneously giving his worst, most selfish impulses unlimited funding.
And that unlimited funding is creating an immediate crisis, which she reveals to Daya Krishna.
Yes. Singar is rapidly emptying his bank accounts. He hasn't just bought silk shirts and velvet shoes, he's become entirely infatuated with a local courtesan named Madhuri.
And this isn't just a passing fancy.
No, it's so extreme that he has actually proposed marriage to her.
Which is wild.
It is. So Leela is at her wit's end. She begs Daya Krishna, as Singar's trusted friend, to intervene and talk some sense into him.
She even goes as far as threatening to pack her belongings and leave the house entirely if Daya Krishna fails to save her husband from this delusion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of Premchand's social critique, Leela is highlighting the collateral damage of patriarchal wealth structures.
She's effectively trapped. Her husband holds all the financial and social power, and he's squandering it.
And because her own voice holds no weight with Singar, she has to outsource her agency.
Right, she has to rely on another man, Daya Krishna, to try and fix the situation.
And Daya Krishna seems to embrace this role immediately. He leaves the house feeling elated, believing he's stumbled into an incredibly noble purpose.
He pictures himself as Leela's trusted savior, the moral knight who's going to rescue his misguided friend from the clutches of vice and return him to his rightful family life.
It's a textbook savior complex.
Oh, completely. He feels deeply self-important, armed with moral superiority. But Premchand is carefully setting up the psychological dominoes for Daya Krishna's own fall.
And here's where it gets really interesting for you listening. We get a 1-month time jump in the narrative.
A very telling 1-month jump.
You might assume that Daya Krishna has spent these last 30 days lecturing his friend, reasoning with him, trying to pull him back to his duties as a husband.
But that isn't what happens at all.
Not even close. Daya Krishna hasn't saved his friend. Instead, Daya Krishna himself has become a regular, daily visitor at the house of the courtesan, Madhuri.
The supposed moral savior has transformed into a rival suitor.
Which is just a brilliant twist. To understand how this transition happens, maybe we should clarify the cultural context of a courtesan, or the tallwife, in Premchand's era.
Yeah, that's really important. This wasn't some dark alleyway transaction. These women were often highly trained in classical music, intricate dance, and poetry.
They catered to wealthy patrons in elaborate parlors.
Right, often accompanied by their own musicians and a madam who managed the house. The environment was designed to be intoxicating, blending intellectual and artistic stimulation with the promise of intimacy.
That context really makes Daya Krishna's fall much more understandable. He doesn't just walk in and abandon his morals on day one.
Exactly. He likely goes in with his righteous mission, but he gets a taste of the luxury, the captivating music, the undivided attention.
The irony Premchand plays with is how easily rigid moral superiority crumbles when it's actually exposed to sophisticated temptation.
And he justifies his presence there by intellectualizing it.
Precisely. And this setup allows Premchand to execute a brilliant psychological profiling of two men pursuing the same woman through wildly different methods.
Let's examine this contrast, starting with Singar Singh's approach to Madhuri.
Okay, so Singar relies entirely on the blunt force of his inheritance.
He does. Singar's approach is arrogant, possessive, and entirely transactional. Because he comes from a place of immense, sudden wealth, his entitlement is absolute.
He treats Madhuri's time and affections as commodities he has literally bought.
Right. He views her strictly as a highly priced object of pleasure. His ultimate goal is to keep her in a cage, isolated from any other patrons.
Because he operates under the delusion that his money grants him total ownership over her autonomy.
It's a mindset that equates financial investment with human ownership.
But Daya Krishna doesn't have Singar's financial resources. His approach to Madhuri has to be completely different to compete in that environment.
Lacking financial power, Daya Krishna compensates by offering what he considers to be pure, naive devotion.
He adopts an exaggerated, almost spiritual reverence for her.
Instead of treating her as property, he treats her like a deity. He actively claims that he isn't jealous of the other men who visit her parlor, including his own friend Singar.
He justifies this by framing himself merely as a humble worshiper, claiming he is satisfied with whatever small crumb of attention the goddess chooses to grant him.
He builds his entire identity in this rivalry around the idea that his love is morally superior because it is supposedly free of jealousy and ownership.
He puts her on a massive pedestal.
This raises an important question for the listener to consider. Is Daya Krishna actually treating Madhuri any better than Singar is?
Premchand's subtle genius is demonstrating that he is not.
Both men, despite their drastically different outward approaches, are fundamentally objectifying her.
Singar objectifies her as purchased property. Daya Krishna objectifies her as an untouchable idol.
Neither man is capable of seeing her as a complex, flawed, breathing human being with her own agency.
Because a pedestal is just as confining as a cage.
Absolutely.
And the tragic part is, Daya Krishna truly believes his invisible cage is noble because it's built out of devotion rather than rupees.
But Madhuri, the woman navigating this intense rivalry, is incredibly observant.
She sees right through the facades of both men. Which brings us to a major turning point in the story, Madhuri's reality check.
This confrontation is perhaps the most powerful piece of dialogue in the entire narrative.
Because it gives voice to the commodified woman at the center of the conflict.
Exactly. So Daya Krishna is sitting with Madhuri, actively trying to prove his pure spiritual intentions.
He's essentially bragging about his own emotional evolution, stating how he harbors no ill will toward anyone else who receives her special favor.
He thinks this lack of possessiveness makes him sound incredibly enlightened.
But Madhuri completely dismantles his philosophy. She unexpectedly tells Daya Krishna that he needs to stop visiting her parlor altogether.
Her rejection is calculated, and her rebuke of his character is stinging. She doesn't just ask him to leave, she calls him a liar to his face.
She exposes his entire philosophical stance as an elaborate hypocrisy.
If we break down Madhuri's argument, she points out a very uncomfortable truth. She tells Daya Krishna that, deep down, he fundamentally doesn't believe a woman in her profession is even capable of possessing genuine, stable love or fidelity.
He claims to worship her like a goddess, but in reality, he looks down on her.
His lack of jealousy isn't a sign of his nobility. It's a symptom of his extremely low expectations of her.
He accepts her entertaining other men because he believes that is simply the nature of a woman in her position.
That is the core of her accusation. She then opens up about the agonizing tragedy of her own life.
She tells him that she is absolutely desperate for true, stable, grounding love. But the men who walk through her doors, men like Singar and Daya Krishna, they only view her as a transactional plaything or an abstract concept.
They don't want a human partner. They want a specific service or a projection of their own desires.
She uses a really striking metaphor during this exchange. She tells him that a single drop of sweet water is incredibly precious when you are drowning in a sea of salt water.
That's such a powerful image.
It is. She is thirsting for that sweet water of genuine human connection. But Daya Krishna is too blinded by his own savior complex, too wrapped up in his performance of fake worship, to offer her anything real.
Hearing this harsh truth shatters Daya Krishna's worldview. The facade he built to protect his own ego crumbles instantly.
He realizes in that moment that love without a degree of possessiveness or fear of loss actually lacks depth.
Right, it means you don't truly value the person enough to care if they leave.
As soon as Madhuri strips away his fake enlightened nobility, the reality of the situation hits him, and he begins to feel the literal venom of envy toward Singar Singh.
The intellectual illusion is completely gone, leaving only raw jealousy.
It's a brutal ego death. Daya Krishna is forced to realize he's just another buyer in the marketplace, only he was attempting to pay with counterfeit spiritual currency instead of actual cash.
While Daya Krishna is wrestling with this massive internal crisis, the narrative accelerates rapidly into its dramatic climax.
Without warning, Singar Singh arrives at Daya Krishna's house, and the man who walks through the door is vastly different from the perfectly styled heir we met at the beginning of the story.
He's completely disheveled, panicked, and frantic.
The visual contrast is intentional, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. Singer remained perfectly composed after the death of his own father, but the potential loss of his purchased asset has caused him to completely fall apart.
Because Singar drops a massive piece of news. Madhuri has vanished.
She hasn't just gone out for the day, she has completely disappeared.
She didn't tell her own family. She didn't inform her madam, and she left her accompanying musicians crying and cursing their sudden loss of income. She is simply gone without a trace.
And Singar's reaction to her sudden disappearance is incredibly revealing of his underlying psychology.
It's a terrifying display of entitlement. Singar goes on this furious, screaming rant in Daya Krishna's home.
It's revealing because he isn't worried about whether she's safe.
Right, he isn't concerned that she might have been hurt.
He's furiously worried about his return on investment. He complains bitterly to Daya Krishna that he spent over 10,000 rupees on her in a single year.
In the context of Premchand's time, 10,000 rupees was an astronomical sum, representing a staggering transfer of wealth for one person's attention.
And Singar makes sure to emphasize that financial sacrifice.
He talks about how he laid his family's valuable heirlooms at her feet and dragged his own respected family name through the mud, all to secure her favor.
And after all that expenditure, what is his immediate conclusion regarding her disappearance?
He's absolutely convinced that she has simply found a new, richer prey.
He views her entirely as a financial predator, casts himself in the role of the exploited victim, and vows to hunt her down to reclaim what he feels he owns.
His total lack of self-awareness is staggering, but it's consistent with his character.
Singar bought her time, her music, and her physical presence. And because of his inherited arrogance, he truly believed that financial transaction purchased her soul and her permanent loyalty.
When she asserts her own autonomy by leaving on her own terms, his capitalist mindset can only process her actions as a junction contract.
He assumes she left for a better financial offer because, in his insulated world, money is the only conceivable motivator for human behavior.
Which brings us to the final fascinating philosophical debate of this deep dive. Singar, pacing in his rage, decides to blame the existence of the entire courtesan profession on what he broadly labels the weakness of women.
He claims women like Madhuri are inherently deceitful, greedy, and designed to ruin men.
This is where Daya Krishna, who is still nursing his own fresh wounds and recent ego death, pushes back quite sharply against his friend's worldview.
Daya Krishna presents a counter-argument that feels incredibly modern.
He tells Singar point blank that when a woman sells her beauty or her time, it's only because buyers actively emerge to purchase it.
He concludes that this entire systemic issue, the commodification of women and the existence of the parlor culture, was undoubtedly started and is actively maintained by men.
It's a pure supply and demand argument, and Daya Krishna points a finger squarely at the demand side of the equation.
Premchand uses Daya Krishna to articulate a very radical thought for the society he was writing in.
He really does. Daya Krishna is essentially saying you cannot manufacture a market for a human being, willingly participate in that market with your immense wealth, and then blame the human being for acting like a commodity.
The men built the financial cage, and now a man is complaining that the bird inside it isn't loyal.
So does Singar pause to reflect on this rather profound point? Does he have a sudden moment of clarity about his own complicity?
Of course not.
Completely unbothered by the reflection Daya Krishna offers, Singar literally checks his watch, realizes he's wasting valuable time debating philosophy, and rushes out the door to continue his frantic, obsessive search to hunt Madhuri down.
And that abrupt departure is exactly how Premchand ends the story.
It's a brilliant, deliberately unresolved ending.
Premchand refuses to tie the narrative up in a neat bow, leaving the heavy lifting of interpretation to the reader, or in this case, the listener.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's synthesize the key takeaways.
If we look at the totality of the story, it's clear that Premchand isn't just delivering an entertaining soap opera about a runaway courtesan and two foolish friends.
Right.
He's executing a scathing, multi-layered critique of society. He's dismantling the patriarchal entitlement that creates and sustains roles like the courtesan in the first place.
He's showing us the deeply corrosive nature of inherited wealth when it's entirely disconnected from purpose, labor, and social responsibility, as embodied by Singar.
And he's also exposing the insidious nature of men who demand purity, loyalty, and spiritual devotion from the very women they actively commodify and purchase, as we saw with Daya Krishna.
Singar wanted a loyal wife he could buy and control. Daya Krishna wanted a flawless goddess he could visit and worship without taking real responsibility.
Neither of them actually wanted Madhuri, the human being.
Exactly that. They wanted projections of their own needs. Which leaves us with a lingering thought regarding Madhuri's ultimate fate.
Yes.
I want to leave you with a question to mull over long after this video concludes. Consider Madhuri's sudden, unexplained disappearance.
Singar immediately assumes she left to find a richer target, a man with an even bigger bank account than his.
But based on the harsh truth she delivered to Daya Krishna, her agonizing, desperate desire for genuine, non-transactional love, that single drop of sweet water in a sea of salt. Is it possible she didn't run toward money at all?
It completely reframes her actions.
Is it possible she ran away to escape the suffocating cages built by both men?
She was trapped between Singar's toxic, aggressive financial ownership and Daya Krishna's naive, impossible spiritual expectations.
Did she simply run away to find a place where she could finally drop the performance and just be a flawed, breathing human being?
If you view it through that lens, she wasn't chasing a payout. She was actively claiming her own freedom in a society designed to deny it to her.
What an incredibly layered masterpiece of a story by Munshi Premchand. We've thoroughly enjoyed breaking down the psychology and social commentary of this text for you today.
That's been a great deep dive.
Remember, you are listening to this custom deep dive on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. If you found value in this analysis, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button right now, leave a like on the video, and drop down into the comments to let us know your perspective.
Do you think Madhuri escaped to find genuine love, or do you think Singar was right and she simply moved on to a wealthier patron?
We want to read your theories. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring the deeper meaning behind the stories we tell.